Welcome to another edition of Women's Wrestling Weekly, the show, episode number 22, joined by Scotty Two Hotties, Scott Beck. Scott, we have Women's Nationals coming up. Let's retroactively go back and let's get your thoughts on something that you would have said 2 years ago. We didn't have the show 2 years ago. What would you have said on this show when Sage Mortimer got disqualified in the U23 best of three finals against Emily Shilson?
I mean, at the time, I thought it was an absolutely horrible call because that's, what you teach that it was a short offense front headlock and she banged the head a couple of times and went to go around. That's the way people are taught that technique. And that's, what you're supposed to kind of do. And their choice is to let go of the arm if they don't want to have their, post the hands if they don't want to have their head slammed in the mat. Um, it turns out Emily Shilson was injured, at the time. And it seems as if, after that was more of a major injury, but, I don't know if she had concussion issues before or not. They actually disqualified Mortimer. I remember seeing her at the Open in the elevator and saying, I'm sorry you were the beneficiary of such a horrible call. I stand by that is the way the technique should be supposed to be done. And freestyle is a brutal sport. So, I don't understand how you can belly to back somebody straight where they hit on the top of their neck, you know, and that's okay. But if you slam somebody from, 5 inches off the mat, their head into it, and they have a chance to defend themselves, I'm always a big believer, in the rules that the only time you stop something that should be an illegal move is if the person has no choice and can't, let go. They can't release the move. Like in many rules in full style, it's like if you don't like the, roll to your back, then you have an option. So that's kind of the way I felt about that.
That was interesting because it was the best of three as the first match. It happened in the first minute. Sage Mortimer got disqualified from the tournament. All of her matches retroactively got taken away. That was one of those calls that stood the test of time. Like that is one that we remember. Like you talked about with Lexi Janiak at the U20 Worlds. That's one of those matches that you remember if you followed it, and that's one that will stand the test of time.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know you were going to mention, that Mortimer, match. And yeah, there's certain things you just, you remember. It's like the Lang from Northwestern, Darian Caldwell, first period in folk style. There's matches where just things happen in the match. The Mongolian, undressing at the World Champion. There are things you just remember, and you associate them with a moment. So, and that segues into good moments coming up. We got the heart of the, you know, freestyle season coming up. The international freestyle season coming up.
Such an interesting event. Women's Nationals, also known as Body Bar. There's different divisions they have, but we're going to focus on three: U17, U20, and U23. U17 and U20, there's implications for a world team spot. U23, it's a national team, but it could be a world team spot if things work out. So for U23, of course, it means under 23. If you are the champion of that, you have to wait to see what happens at the US Open. So the highest national team member that's U23 eligible gets the right to take that spot. If not, it will go to the US national winner at this upcoming Women's Nationals. So it's a little bit complicated, but I think it's the best system to get our best wrestlers to the U23 World Championships.
Yeah, I think it is. And, they tweaked something which, actually, hurt my daughter at one point where they didn't have you had a U23 person on the other side of the bracket, a national team member. Now they tweaked it where you can do a wrestle off for a true second if you took third and you didn't get to wrestle the other person. But in general, it's a good system. I think it encourages the U23 people to, if they want, most of the people that are trying to make U23 world team think they can do pretty well in the US Open on the senior level, right? And then there's people that go to U23 Nationals, you kind of roll in the dice, right? If you go to senior open or senior trials and work through the process and you don't take top three and you haven't gone to senior nationals, you're not going to make the team. So it comes to an issue of, on one hand, you have people that say, well, I believe in myself and I think I'm going to make senior national team and I want to focus on that and not go to U23 nationals and worry about it. You have other people that say, well, maybe I wouldn't, make national team. I'm not good enough, but if I go to, U23 nationals and I got a shot to win and maybe the other person thinks they're going to place and doesn't, I can kind of backdoor entry, and you see a little of that. I think it's a good system. I'm okay with it.
Here's why I like the U23 Nationals so much because it comes right after the college season. It's a mix of high schoolers, NAIA, NCAA, and you just get to see who the best is. Now, not everyone's going to be there, so it's not a college system, but it reverts back to what we talked about, that it won't feel like a college type of tournament. It has an international feel, even though there's college athletes participating.
I mean, this is one of my, if not the favorite. I happen to love the U.S. Open. I love this tournament. And I remember the first time going there when we were competing for the first time. This is intense. This is like game on, and it feels it. You just, to make a world team, and you and I talk about it infinitely. We've had this discussion. Making a world team at any level is, I love the Bob Dylan poster, by the way. I just noticed that. Making a world team at any level is very, very difficult. Many very good wrestlers have never made any at any level. It's exceptionally difficult. It's very competitive, and the best of the best are trying to make it. And this has that feel. You got to win this tournament. And I know now we have younger than U17, and there's maybe U15 Worlds, but U17 Worlds, former cadet Worlds, is a serious tournament. You go there, it's ran like the Senior World Championships, the way athletes are called out, the countries that go. This is kind of the beginning sniff of high-level international competition for these athletes. And the trials has that feel to it. The way the refs referee it, the way they're calling the athletes back to the center, this is game on intensity.
Although it does have that feel of college athletes being there, as we said, there will be more of a feel that it is free and open and that you're doing it for yourself. So when you hear an interview and they say, I want to make world and Olympic teams, this is the start of that. This is what they mean to get it started, to get through a tough tournament. And then you have to win best of three. That's what I think makes it unique, is that you can't just maybe get away with one and get a fall or get a leg lace in the first match and then it's yours. You got to win best of three. And I think that's what makes this unique.
Yeah, I mean, you can't backdoor it. I love the concept of the best of three because you tends to get the better athlete unless they really just have an off day or an injury. I mean, and it, to some extent, it allows the better athlete to wrestle freely because if they really believe they're the better athlete and they make one mistake by being aggressive in the first match or the second match, they can overcome that. Then you get the better athlete. I love that format. It's not a good format if you win the first and then dump two in a row, but I do think it tends to liberate wrestlers to go for it. You don't have that in the quarters, semis, and on the way up. You better not lose, but at least by the time you get to the finals, you're trying to get the better one. And I think that's a good thing.
Let's lock in on one weight class in particular at the U23 Nationals, and that's 59 kilograms. Three athletes to pay attention to: Virginia Foard, Lexi Janiak, Carolina Moreno. And here's why. You have Virginia Foard, who has been in red shirt. So let's see what she does. Lexi Janiak won the NCWWC, which is the NCAA. So she has two age level world medals. Then Carolina Moreno, who we talked about, who finished fourth at the NAIA championships, but is a three-time NAIA champion. Let's see if she can redeem herself and come through and win a domestic tournament. I'm interested to see how those three pair up. It's likely that one of those two will meet in the finals, but that's the weight class that I'm most interested in the U23 Nationals.
I mean, those three names interest me, but a lot. And I want to see Moreno wrestle again. I want to see Moreno against Janiak, to be honest with you. I want to see where that matchup is. And Virginia Foard is an exceptionally good competitor. But let's, the bracket's going to be stacked, with others. And I've seen people, surprisingly, I'd say this tournament, most of the weights, kind of the people that should be there tend to be in the finals. But I've seen people, make runs. And we've seen in the past, I remember when was at a U17 team, when Alara Boyd was kind of not well known, showed up at the tournament and, took some names. But my point is she kind of ran, through the bracket and then medaled, I think, at Cadet Worlds, whether that year or another year. So to some athletes, it's kind of a coming out party where they've kind of stayed in state and kind of been very good there, worked very hard, maybe a member of a good club, and then kind of came out. The other thing I would say just about, you know, the significance of these world teams at the younger levels is, I'd say a huge percentage, and FloWrestling did a thing for the men's NCAA All-Americans, what percent have wrestled on age group world teams. And I think it was like in the 60s or 70%, something like that. And I think you'll see with our athletes, it doesn't mean that there can't be late developers and athletes that, once they hit college, Jakara Winchester was not making age group world teams and really came in her own, or probably junior/senior season in college. But a high percentage of the athletes that ultimately go on to the senior world teams have made age group world teams as well.
Add Tamira Mensah stock to that list too. She was a late
perfect.
bloomer.
Yeah.
She comes out and she just kept getting better and better and better, and then she's the best in the world, unquestionably, by the time she retired.
Yep, good point. Yep.
50 kilograms. We've talked about this in college as the best weight class. Now it's transitioning over to U20 World Team Trials. Sarah Hildebrandt is out of the picture, so it just seems like it's open season for 50 kilograms at the senior level. As we said, we don't know if that person, whoever it is at the senior world team trials, whoever makes that team, if they're ready to compete against the best in one of the toughest weight class. But listen to this. This is ridiculous. I just pulled a few of the names that are in the U20 level. Jacqueline Bazakis, Makennah Craft, Heather Kroll, Brianne Graves, Julia Horger, Paige Morales, Rianne Murphy, Juliana Ocampo, Val Solorio, Gabby Tedesco, Morgan Turner, and Katie Valdez.
That weight is absolutely stacked. And I don't know the accolades of every person there, but I can't even imagine how many of those at some point have been national champions in some format, if not national finalists. But, it's going to be interesting. And we will see where Morgan Turner is at the moment, which really interests me. And I love the fact that if Morgan Turner, let's say she wins, and I'm not handing her a title, I'm just saying, let's say she's going to have to work her way through a bracket. She's going to have to beat at least 3 very good people, and one of them twice. So she's got to win at least 4 or 5 matches against accoladed people at the weight that have wrestled at higher levels than she has. So I can't wait to see where she stands at, in that. And I'm not, as I said, I think Jocelyn Bazakis, who's lost her a number of times, some have been close, Paige Morales, Rianne Murphy, people, Gabby Tedesco, people are going to have some things to say about that. And I'd like to see what happens.
The interesting thing about that too is that these are just the entries right now. So you don't know if they're all going to show up. So these are who we can get excited about. You don't know if someone gets injured in the U17 and decides not to wrestle U20, gets a little leg tweak and says, I'm out of the U20 because I wrestled in the U17. So a lot of things can happen. But as it stands right now, I'm high on Morgan Turner. I think right now, without any data, I think she's probably the third best 50 kilo behind Audrey Jimenez and Sage Mortimer. I think she can be right there with that grouping. I think she can be competitive with that grouping. I'd like to see it happen. They aren't in that weight class, but I think this is an opportunity for Morgan Turner to solidify herself as the top dog, age level wise, in that weight class.
Yeah, maybe age level wise, but you're putting her with the seniors you're mentioning, and I think Aaron Goldstein would have something to say about that. Where she is. I don't know if are you referring to her as a senior or as a U20 or U23?
I'm just saying in the U23, senior's a little bit different level when you get some of those other wrestlers like Aaron Golston, but I just mean in that age level category, which they're in that area.
We're gonna see. I don't know. She's not wrestled. She's wrestled Jocelyn Bazakis. I've not seen her against, Samira Chavez, a Sage Mortimer. It'll be interesting, to see, how she does, in this tournament, and then, ultimately, step up. I mean, she's exceptionally talented. I think I forget who she lost to internationally. She lost to Japan and got handled. I don't know if it was Ito or it was another Japanese athlete, but we'll see where she is. I'm very interested in following and seeing how she progresses as she moves up levels, for sure.
And then, of course, individuals, Taina Fernandez and Everest Leidecker, two wrestlers that we're high on. We're going to see them work their way through the bracket. Of course, Taina Fernandez still U17 eligible for,
Hmm.
I think, this year and next year. So she's still in that area. So she proved herself during the season. We said we really wanted to see where she is on the senior level. And I think she passed with a loss, actually, at the Women's Warrior Open to an Olympian from Nigeria in Esther Kolawole. So I just think she's going to transition that. I would be surprised if she gives up a point. I think a win for another wrestler in that bracket at this point would be scoring a point, but I think the expectations are so high that I think she's going to breeze through it. And if someone scores points, I think congratulations to you. You earned it.
Yeah, I don't want to put that on her because one of the things that makes her so good is that she's so aggressive. So she'll give up a point or two here or there, not necessarily even because somebody's doing an active move on her, but she's just being aggressive, gets stepped out as she's trying something. I don't want to tighten her up where the goal is not to give up a point. The goal should be to keep working on the things that she's practicing and drilling and new techniques and feel comfortable to start to move them into competition and not, I'm not trying to, disagree with you, but I'd like to want her to still be free the way she is. And, the irony is we're saying she lost again. Yeah. Okay. So we now have Alexandra Town is a U23 world champion, and we have a Nigerian U23 bronze and Olympian. So those are the losses for the 15-year-old. Yeah, she's doing pretty well. But I'm glad that she's competing against these athletes, and it'll be fun to watch her. And it's always fun to watch Leidecker as well.
I think she has high standards for herself. I think she puts a lot of weight and pressure on herself. Not in a bad way. I just think she's competitive and she doesn't want to give up position or points. Not that it matters if she does, but I think she has the capability to make a dominant run, and I think she will.
Of course she does. Yeah. I mean, I just want to emphasize, like, I'm not like trying to be, devil's advocate necessarily, but giving up a point isn't necessarily bad if you're, active and trying things, especially in freestyle. It just sometimes happens. It's not the worst thing in the world. But she's going to dominate and obliterate everybody in the turn. Fact. Like, just like we said, the fact, in one of the early episodes that Kilty, Welker, and Blades were going to be national champions. Fact, Fernandez is going to dominate this tournament out of the way.
Final thoughts about the women's nationals. Bazakis is going to be in the U17 division as well at 46 kilos. Morgan Turner will also be in the U17 division, but also at 49, so they will not meet. They can be on a world team again like they were 2 years ago. But this is the tournament that really sets up a lot for what your career can look like. And as we alluded to, making an age level world team, making any world team is difficult. And it's one of the credentials that I think you can wear with you the rest of your life. And it's impressive.
Absolutely. And it's good to have, be back, for the women at this kind of endeavor now, trying to make world teams and compete internationally. To me, this is a fun part of the season. A lot of great athletes should put their, names in the hat in the ring, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. You will be there.
I will be there, excited about it. It's one of my
Right.
favorite tournaments. It's something I circle on the calendar, one of my top three favorite events. So can't wait to follow it. And I hope people will watch on FloWrestling because it is a who's who of women's wrestling, high school and college. And it's fun to see when you get the college and high school mix and you get to see what the future in college might look like. So can't wait.
Yep.
Let's go back to Reese Larramendy. Had a chance to interview her about her desire to want to be on the mic in addition to being on the mat. I think this is good, and I think she had some important insights on what we can do to cultivate and develop more women talking about women's wrestling. And as we move forward with this, I think a good thing would be to have her talk about and break down the senior world championships when it gets to that point and have a preview with Reese Larramendy and get her thoughts. I just think the more we can have that and the more she can get comfortable and build those skill sets and just start out. It is a process and you're not going to be great the first time you do it, but you have to start somewhere, and just talking to her you can see why she can be great.
Wait, so spontaneously, with unbeknownst to me, you're saying we're going to have Reese Larramendy is going to be the first guest and going to preview the. That'll be fun. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm
let's
just
do it.
saying that,
Let's do it.
that
She
could be an
wants to do
option.
it. Let's do it. Yeah, let's give her an opportunity for sure.
I think it'd be fun to have her break things down and just to get her
Yeah,
thoughts.
definitely. I love hearing, when I talk to my daughter, and I, have been around so many of these senior women and younger. I love to hear them break down either their opponents or some of their training partners' opponents and hear how they look at it and see. I know what I think, but I want to hear what they think. They're the competitors. I'd love to know what they think about different people, how you beat them. I always like, I'll say something. Well, if you had a wrestler, how would you beat that person? I love to hear what's in their mind and how they think about the sport. Yeah, let's do it, Kyle. That'll be fun.
It would be cool. And the other thing I liked is that she always just wanted to have a microphone. It didn't matter if it worked. She always just wanted to talk into a mic and record herself. And I think that's just a good thing. Just when you hear about someone that wanted to wrestle, they say, I loved it. I wanted to be around it. I think she wanted to wrestle and she wanted to be on the mic. So you have both, and let's celebrate that and give her opportunities.
I just always loved like it sounds weird, but like microphones. Like I remember I'd always beg my parents or for Christmas, whatever it is, like I would tell them like I want a microphone. I didn't care if it worked. I didn't care about plugging it in. I didn't want to record anything. I just wanted to have a microphone and I would just practice. I remember I started off with baseball and I would just, put a little headset on. I would look up some of the players and just get like stats on them and just be upstairs by myself, just watching a replay of a game and doing commentary as if I was the broadcaster. So I just always had this like love for it and passion for everything, for cameras, for microphones. I enjoy being in front of the camera. I like being able to show off that side of me, the different side of me that it's not always just serious, like business that I do have more personalities to me than that. And then the more I got into wrestling, when I started to develop a passion for wrestling, I was like, this is something that I might want to do when I'm older is just broadcasting or, getting into doing stuff like this, whether it is interviews or, analysis, kind of like how they do with the UFC, and like pre-shows, doing that stuff and kind of laying out how the matches should go and doing like how you said with the play-by-plays as well. I think that's fun. I remember I've even done like um, technique breakdowns. I used to have a YouTube channel. I did technique breakdowns. Like I just loved it, and it's the more that I continue to fall in love with wrestling, the more I get into wanting to really pursue a career and stay in wrestling and maybe just start to work behind the scenes when my athletic career finishes. So I'm currently going to school for enterprise leadership, which is business, but I have thought a lot about doing sports analysis, sports broadcasts, things like this.
Yeah, and this ties in, what you and I talked offline. Like last time we talked about her as an example, somebody, and I actually didn't know that you had had this conversation. We're planning, interviewing her. So that's why she was brought up last episode. And then, you followed up with a great interview with her and we got to hear her speak. So, yeah, it's great.
Lee Miracle is the head women's coach at Campbellsville University. He's won 4 national team championships, 2 in WCWA, 2 in NAIA. He has dropped off a little bit, got 12th at the NAIA championships, but you can tell he's making a push back. He's competitive. He's not going to sit back and just take being 12th in the country. He picked up Makennah Craft, who, as you probably remember, Scott, she placed 5th at Junior Nationals, but then went to the Missouri Valley Open and had an incredible run. She teched every college wrestler that she faced in that tournament. I think this is a good start for Lee Miracle to bring Campbellsville back to national prominence.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. She's a great recruit, and I love when the high school girls compete in the senior opens and do well. And I've known Lee for a long time. Obviously, his daughter Kayla Miracle, my daughter trains with. Kayla, is a two-time world silver medalist, a two-time Olympian, a very technical wrestler, very understands the sport. And I'd like to attribute a lot of that. I mean, she went to Culver Academy and was, wrestled against boys in high school in Indiana, four-time national champ at Campbellsville. I'm assuming some of that, at least, Lee Miracle had something to do about creating a wrestling mind and being around the sport. And, it's good to see him back. It's good to see he gets a great recruit. And I'm looking for good things from Campbellsville and Lee.
And it just goes back to a core fundamental principle. It's about relationships. Michaela Campbell is from Ohio. So is Makennah Craft. She had coached Makennah Craft before. She's someone that Makennah Craft had looked up to. She's part of the program. So if you're able to have that type of relationship, you come in, you feel comfortable, you know the system already. It's a great way to get someone's foot in the door and get them started at the college level early.
Yeah, especially a big part of college wrestling, is who you're gonna. Obviously, it's who you're gonna be coached by, but it's like who you're gonna wrestle, and you either need to have like other wrestlers, around your weight that can push you because you have the thing where in practice when you go live, you want some people you can annihilate, some people that kind of beat you up if and you struggle to get better against, and then some people kind of like you're equal, where on a good day the things work, on bad days they don't. But if you have, so they can either be your teammates or in many cases they can be, like an assistant coach who's a seasoned athlete that's gone through it and is gonna, whether it's during practice be a partner or after practice, you call up on Sunday morning, say, hey, let's go in and drill, or let's go in and go live, or hey, I got to cut some weight, will you help me? And that's really important. Lee Miracle as a coach had one of the best lines I've ever heard about wrestling is never sacrifice position for points. And you see that so many times when somebody's up 8-0, they go for a tech and then they're a little loose on a gut and they get stepped over and stuck. I mean, this concept that position's so important, and I love that mantra, from him.
This is big recruiting time. You see the girls making their commitments to colleges and where they're going to go. McKendree seems to always be getting recruiting hauls. Alexio Garcia is out there hustling. Probably the two coaches that you just see that hustle unbelievably, Alexio Garcia and Jake Cadle at William Penn. Of course, there are others, but those are the ones that come to top of mind awareness that their bread and butter is going out there and recruiting the best talent. And to get someone like Katie Valdez into your program that McKendree did, I just think so highly of her and what she can do and how she can reach the next level. Those types of things, and you get that attitude that's just going to elevate your program and it's going to keep you relevant. And the relevant programs right now are Iowa, North Central, Grand Valley, McKendree. Seems like those four are still going to be battling it out next season, but you need the recruits to come in to make that possible.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually had a conversation with Alexio. He called me up after Nationals and we were just talking. He said, so now I own it. These are my people now. Like, right? These are my recruits. I took over a program. Let's judge me now based on the classes I bring in and how they do. So, he's a very good recruiter, and obviously, he's very good in the state of Washington. He coached there and he had that, whole connection, the Emma Bruntiel and, Cam Guerin. But he's, good coach. It's a good recruiting game. And now let's see how he does. And that's Exhibit A is pretty good recruiting out there.
It is true because when you do take over for a legendary program, you are going to be judged by what happens with your recruits and how you move forward from there. So I think that's a timely comment on his part. And how will McKendree do? I thought they wrestled well at the national championships,
Yes.
third place. I think that they can build on that, and I think they can be competitive when they get this full recruiting class in. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yep.
Final thought. Asian Championships just took place. And if you read the article that UWW posted, they're making it sound like Japan is on the rocks. You know this lane better than anyone, Scott. Is there any truth to that at all?
No, there's no truth to that at all. I mean, the first thing is, there was a big deal made about, that, first I'd say North Korea did very well. And that's another, separate topic. They took second over China by a couple of points, but they had a very, they had a bunch of finalists, especially in the lighter weights. They did very well, and they had some people that had good matches. I think that actually they took third right behind China. I'm sorry, but the biggest thing to me, 53 kilos. Japan beat world champ who's dropping down from 55. As Fujinami goes up, Mo Kyuka was teched by Cho of Japan. And that was a little surprising. It was 12-1 tech. And, it just shows you. If you look at the lightweights, North Korea did very well. I think they finished only 5 or 10 points if you look at it up to 59 kilos, if you look at all the weights. But the issue is this, all right? Japan had one Olympian, Nanako Ozaki, who was an Olympian at 68, and she wrestled here at 62. She actually lost at 62 kilos, which was a little surprising, to be honest with you. But I'm trying to remember. She lost to I can't even remember the name. So Ozaki lost, but this was I hate to use the expression like a second team of world champions. So you have Yashimoto at 50, who's a world champion. At 53, you had Kyoko, who lost. She's a world champion. 55, three-time world champ Haruna Kuno, didn't win. She lost by a point to the North Korean who won the semis, took a bronze. So, and you go up to Miwa Morikawa is a world champion. Masako Furuuchi is a world champion. So this is a good team, but only like one of the kind of A team was really in this. So I don't think it's necessarily a statement on Japan. I think it's a statement that, other countries are very competitive, very good. North Korea, they just lurk in the shadows, and you don't know what tournaments are coming out to. They showed up at the 2017 Paris Worlds, which, and then they disappear, and we're packed at 53 tech defending world champ Mukaido, who went down a weight and then got tech. So you don't know like who's going to be there, when North Korea is going to be there. I thought interesting at 59 kilo world champion from China, Qi Zhang, wrestled up at 65. She took a bronze. She lost close to Miwa Morikawa from Japan, won. She lost 8-4 to her, then took a bronze. So it was a very competitive tournament. I think, the Kyrgyzstani girls in the upper weights, Burkova's, very good, did very well. I don't think, we're all going to sit here and always say, Japan, they're vulnerable. But, this was their quote B-side with 5 world champions or something like it. And also, we're just moving into the international season. That's another reason, this tournament's first before the European Senior World Championships, then the Pan Am. So you don't know where people are. Maybe they've been taking breaks. So, I'm not forming any judgments right now. I think the biggest takeaways to me, as always, Japan is deep. China is very physical. If you watch the matches, it's very tough. And North Korea, who knows if they can beat the world champions or not, but in the first 5 weights, they're exceptionally tough. I don't even know who they train with, who they work out, what kind of matches they do, but they're very good.
It was interesting reading that article. You learn so much about the mentality and the system and how they think. The one who had won from North Korea, she had said she wanted to give credit to the supreme leader and just how they think and how they're probably told to talk about wrestling. But Scott, I don't know if we'll ever figure out North Korean wrestling. I just think it's impossible because we have zero answers on nothing. Like there's nothing there to even talk about because they just show up when they want to. We don't know their system, coaches. There's just no data.
Yeah, and the lady that won at 53 kilos, Cho, she wrestled in the 2010 Asian Championships, I believe she won, and then she was an Olympic bronze medalist. So she wins the Asian Champions, kind of disappears. But I think, not getting into too much like global geopolitics, but this is kind of representative of North Korea as a country. I mean, the moniker is the Hermit Kingdom. It's, have a brutal, repressive dictator. Hopefully he won't send somebody to kill me for saying that. But, it's a very closed society. They mostly trade, huge amounts of trade with China, where they share a border. And it's very repressive. So basically, I don't know what motivates when and where they show up to things. Is it what money the country has at the moment? Where the world, where the tournaments are, or just a random whim of Kim Jong-un. I mean, you just don't know anything about the country. It's kind of a mystery. And I think everything about the country is a mystery and will remain so probably for the foreseeable future.